Just because we believe in small steps, should we ever take a big leap instead? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods, talking about how to improve your life one small step at a time. These podcasts are usually about tiny changes. I have a whole thing called Small Steps. Do the next right thing. Take the next 10-minute walk. Clean one drawer out at a time. One chapter, one habit, that part. I believe deeply in taking small steps, and it changed my life more than any sort of big dramatic moment has. But sometimes a small step is just not enough. Sometimes life requires a big bang. And I realized this in a couple different ways with two different projects that happened last week, and two different approaches, and both were appropriate for what it was. The first one is today I was going to clean my garage. Start standing there with surrounding, with bins and old shelves and cleaning out mysterious objects. I don't even know what they are anymore. And a lot of stuff is in those garage. Now, how I started out this morning were small steps. I got the bins slowly upstairs. I pulled the car out of the way. I pulled out some additional brooms, and then I kind of gave myself some lunch, and then I got started cleaning it, one shelf at a time. But somewhere in the middle of it, the whole project kind of crossed a line. By stopping at one small step, now it became, we're going to just do this fully right now. The activation energy was already spent, right? The car was out, the bins were moved in. And if I just did one shelf or a couple of shelves, it would have left me with a half dismantled garage and more stress than I wanted to start this week off with. Also, last week, I planted some trees, and the trees need to get out of pots and into the ground. They need to get watered properly. And if I just said, okay, every day I will plant one tree, it's going to put the other trees in danger. I won't have a good system in place because I set up a watering system after that to water the trees. Let's just finish it. Let's just do all of it in one big push. And I could have, like I said, done it small, dug the holes one day. Next week, dropped one in the hole the next day. Quick win, small steps. And like I said, it's really a much bigger undertaking because, like I said, if I left those trees in there, I'd get bigger root balls, harder ground. The planting would have been harder to do. And you know what? You cannot just sort of plant a tree halfway. You have to do it in a very thoughtful way, start to finish. And so that commitment was required of me to get those things planted. Some things you can do in pieces, and some things really require you to go all in from the beginning. And so today I want to explore the differences of when you take small steps and when you actually need to keep going and do some big steps. And we'll look at that. So let me look at the framework we talked about earlier, is that, some things in life are gardens, and sometimes they're demolition projects. Gardens need consistent tending over time. You water it, you weed it, you show up when nothing looks like it's happening. You can't force a tomato plant to grow by screaming at it for 8 hours on a Saturday. It doesn't help you. It doesn't work in any sort of way. Exercise is a bit like that too, right? You need to do each step piece by piece. Building a Bible study habit. You just can't read the whole Bible in one sitting. You sort of have to do it over and over in time. Finances. You can't just take one paycheck and put it away. You do small steps over time, developing your account. All the different things that you're doing, whether you're praying more, reading more, sleeping better, it takes small steps, even growing a marriage. These are gardens, and they go through the daily life and rhythm with consistency and not intensity. You miss a day, you spent too much one day, you water the garden the next day. Small steps, starting over, keep going. The whole point is the long game. But demolition projects are a little bit different when they come in life. They need decisive action, they need momentum, and they need you to commit and then go. Thinking about cleaning out a neglected room, or like I said, my garage, having a hard conversation you've been avoiding for months and months, and finally maybe sitting down and looking at your finances and just knocking out a long process to see where you've been spending your money, what a new budget would look like. And maybe sometimes if you're launching a new thing like a business, You need to buy equipment, you need to sign up for classes, you need to do something, right? There's always something that you need to do, and you need to get a little momentum in it. Otherwise, you're just stuck at an initial phase. If you think about these two ways of looking at life, these things don't need a gradual response or maybe even cautious progress. Well, in fact, sometimes what partial progress does on a demolition project, it just creates more stress than just finishing it. I remember I went through this piece where I have a closet over yonder, and it just had a lot of old stuff in it. And so it's next to what room I call my gym. I hauled everything out of it, and then slowly, step by step, I started going through all the stuff. Well, in the meantime, my gym was full of stuff, and I couldn't really work out in there. So I really needed a big bang because I didn't need a gym full of half-cleaned stuff, or I didn't need a backyard with half-dug holes, or a garage with half-put-away items in it. The half decision would have been sitting in my mind all this time. It would have made the rest of my life more difficult and causing more hardship for myself. Some problems, like I said, need a rhythm, and some problems need a rupture in your life where you're actually doing the big thing. The wisdom is determining which thing that is. And so let's talk about building versus clearing. And I've been asking myself a lot about this and thinking about this in terms of this conversation. Am I building something or am I clearing something? Those two things have different workflows. Almost all the time, building something works better through small steps. Building strength, building a better, Bible study habit, building a writing practice or a journaling practice in shape, building a friendship, building a business from the ground up. Those things take consistency and repetition every day. It may be boring some days, but you don't run a marathon in one day. You run a mile, and then you run another mile the next day. But clearing up a mess often needs force. Clearing clutter, not by organizing it, but just by getting rid of it. Ending a pattern that's been destructive for many years in your life. Making a decision that you've been sitting with for 2 years and never acting on it. Maybe cleaning out a garage, planting a tree garden in your backyard while the roots all dry out. Gradual progress on a clearing project actually can make things worse because when you nibble at it slowly, you stay emotionally attached to the old system. You never fully cross over the threshold to get to the new place in your mind where you're at. You never get the benefits of the reorganized clutter. You just get clutter all the time that you should just get rid of. So if you get a few examples that feed kind of into this category, building a project, like I said, starting a walking habit, reading the Bible better, saving money, learning to cook healthier, learning to build muscle, working on your sleep project, practicing journaling, building a podcast, doing something like that. All those projects need small steps. But a clearing project, like I said, is clearing out a room, having a conversation you have avoided for years, changing jobs and going to something that you've been dreaming of all your life, or getting away from something that's been draining you your whole life. Deleting social media, reorganizing your file system, replanting your yard, even working on weeding in the yard sometimes, getting a health issue finally cleared out and worked on. When you look at those two lists, it feels familiar to you that there's something that is on a clearing list that you've been treating like a building project, doing a little at a time, making a little bit of progress, and it never actually seems to finish. Then that's the trap, and it's a sneaky one. So the preparation track is one of the two big mistakes I see in people make right here. And I include myself in it too. I used to make these mistakes. The big one is big banging things that actually need consistency. It's one of those classic kind of January 1st things. I'm going to finish my health. I am going to get healthy, and it's January 1st. And starting tomorrow, I'm waking up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm working out 2 hours. I am meal prepping every single meal and reading 50 books, all starting tomorrow. I'm going to learn Greek. I'm going to declutter the entire house, and I'm going to become a completely different human being by next Thursday. Then ends in exhaustion and disappointment almost always, because real life is seasonal. It's repetitive, it's messy, it's ordinary, and human beings are not machines. These gardening projects do not respond to force and us just having this January 1st force day. They respond to faithfulness, doing small steps day after day. They're survivable. You can do them again tomorrow. Big mistake number 2 is sneakier, and I think it gets talked about a little less. Sometimes people use small steps to avoid change altogether. So we prepare forever. Oh, I just need to read this book about how I'm going to eat better. I just need to read this book about how I can make better checklists. We research garage organization systems. We investigate bins. We label the bins. We watch YouTube videos on how to organize our garage. And then we have a very organized collection of bins sitting there in a row for a very disorganized garage. And somehow it feels like progress, but it's not. Or we wait to get healthier. We spend 2 months researching dieting books. We buy more books. We make better spreadsheets. We subscribe to healthy newsletters. We have extremely well-researched plans that we don't start. If I want to start a business, a podcast, write a book, creative projects, we spend 6 months planning mode, notebooks, names. We have 17 pages of ideas, and we haven't published or written anything yet. And we stay what feels like in motion because we're doing something, but what's happening is we're avoiding actual transformation. And I want to say this because it's absolutely I've done every one of those things. I love preparing for a plan. I love preparing for something that it feels productive. It carries no risks. Nobody can tell you failed because you haven't even done anything yet. And this is the question, and I ask this to myself all the times. Am I taking small steps forward, or am I just circling down the drain and pretending that it's small steps? Because there's a real difference between the two. Small steps move forward. Circling stays in the same place, just at different angles. And it feels like progress, and there is no progress actually being made. And then comes the moment where you just don't need another plan. You don't need another bin. You don't need to research another recipe. You just have to go. The Big Bang works, and I find it generally fascinating because it's a way our brain works. If you ever noticed how good it feels when you finally commit to something that you've been avoiding for a very long time, and that moment happens when the decision's actually made, not considered, no more planning, no more research, made, doing it. And maybe it's cleaning out a room that you walked past 2 years, messy, it's disorganized. Maybe it's finally addressing a health issue. Maybe it's making a phone call you've been dreading for a long time. Or maybe it's just pulling everything out of the garage and committing to finishing it. There's a strange emotional relief that happens the moment you fully commit to something. The dread might not disappear, but it starts to shift because it becomes something that you can actually work through. The dread decreases once the movement starts to begin and the action begins. If something is really, really stressful for you, it may not be the work itself. It may not be carrying the weight of, and you think about that. If there's something really stressful, it's probably not the work itself. It's the dread of all the weight you're carrying with an unfinished decision. Every time you walk past that room and just say, oh, so messy, I should clean that up. Or every time you look at your budget and say, gosh, I don't have a dime to my name. I should really start working on a budget. Every time you don't make the call, you don't take the action, the garage just sits there half done, the exercise is not happening, the recipes aren't being cooked, there's a low-level stress that starts to accumulate. It costs you energy when you're not even actively thinking about it. It starts to weigh on you, and that's when the Big Bang becomes incredibly helpful. A Big Bang creates clarity. It creates a commitment. It creates visible progress, and it changes the environment quickly enough that your brain starts actually believing that change is possible, and not only just possible, but actually happening. And that's why some people completely reorganize a room in one weekend, and they suddenly feel lighter afterwards. Not because the room is cleaner, but because the environment itself has shifted fast enough that it creates a psychological break from that old normal that you no longer walk by and go, oh, I really should do it. Those trees I planted, they're in the ground. They look beautiful. They're actually perking up, and it's something different. It looks intentional. I planted a tree garden. In the tech world, we think about migrations and cutover systems. I work in IT. Some systems get upgraded slowly in pieces, and other systems require a hard switch, a moment where the old system is shut down by new software and a new one begins. This is what I was a part of in my 15 years at that software startup company. You can't run both forever. You eventually have to shut down the old system and start over and cut over to the new system. That's just how it works. It's point that sometimes minor patches don't change the system. Some changes are full system upgrades. You can't patch your way into a new operating system and software. When I spend a lot of time in nature, I think about what actually nature shows us, because I think sometimes we have it slightly wrong. We tend to imagine growth as gradual and controlled, steady, disciplined, 1% better every day. I preach that stuff. I talk about it. I believe in that. But a lot of times what we see in nature is that's not how nature works. I mean, imagine that you're here in the North Woods in late April. The trees look dead. The branches are bare and the sky is gray and nothing is moving at all. And then almost overnight, everything explodes into green. It doesn't just ease in. Spring sort of erupts at us. And then one week, we were looking at sticks, and the next week, we're looking at whole, full trees full of leaves. That's what happened to me on my vacation. I was on a bird watching vacation, and then it was all sticks, and practically the next day it was all leaves. The growth is all the time, quietly under the surface, but the transformation, the visible change came in a burst. Think about bird migrations. That's why I was out bird watching. The birds are migrating through my neck of the woods right now. And one of the things that amazed me the most is when the warblers move through. One day they're not there. You have the robins and you have the cardinals and you have the crows, and then boom, there's all the warblers and the towhees and everything else. Boom, migration isn't gradual. It is sudden, and it happened all of a sudden. And then they migrate out just as quickly as they migrated in. The conditions were right, and the time has come. Ice breaks, floodwaters, you think about all the different things. A caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly. It dissolves into the chrysalis, and then it emerges something brand new. Life contains both gradual formations and sudden transformations. Most of the growth is slow and invisible, and then something tips, and then it happens fast. I think the wisdom into choosing one philosophy or another is maybe learning to read the moment you're standing in. Right now, if you're in a season that requires you to have patience, steady watering, faithful showing up every day, that's what you should be doing. But sometimes the season requires the courage, a decision, a shovel, a weekend, pair of headphones, and then a willingness not to stop until it's done. Part of what happened in my garage a couple of years ago is I had shelving, really old shelving in my garage, and the shelves collapsed. They just busted over the age. And suddenly I had a complete mess in my garage as the shelves. So one shelf broke down and it crashed into all the other shelves. And there was everything that was in my garage sitting in the middle of the garage. Look, my car was not in it. I needed a big bang solution so that I could eventually park my car into the garage again. That was the shelves telling me I needed a big bang stop. And I did. I cleaned out the garage and I got everything done. You think about the trees. I went out and bought myself some trees for my birthday, and I had to plant them in. I remember once I had a friend who needed desperate help. They were about to face some legal situations because they got themselves into a situation where their house was filled with stuff. And if they didn't clean it up, they were going to be in trouble. That meant me, my friends, a dumpster, and a bunch of cleaning supplies, big bang. So I think when you're thinking about these two different approaches, they're both right for the right period of time. Sometimes a garage or a tree planting or my friend's house full of stuff, you needed a big bang. You needed to have something happen right away and instantly. The garage for me this morning, when I was cleaning up my garage, I wasn't in a panic situation. I needed a little bit of momentum. I'm not a morning person. I ate breakfast. I got the car out. I got the bins in. But then an hour later, I was working on everything. I set up my new lawnmower. I put stuff away from camping, away in the bins. And I have less chaos now. The trees, like I said, they're planted now. They're on their way to working. It's just how things work. And so I think, if you've been listening and feeling frustrated because small steps sometimes don't seem to be enough, don't seem to be adding up enough, ask yourself the honest question. Am I actually moving forward, or am I circling down the drain? Is this a garden that needs constant watering, or is this a demolition project that needs me to just go? On the other side of it, are you constantly burning yourself out, trying to reinvent your whole life every Monday, and you don't seem to improve on anything? You explode into energy bursts and then it goes nowhere. Sometimes the quiet daily steps is really enough. Everything you need in order to just keep going. Sometimes you just need to do something on a Tuesday and a Wednesday and a Thursday, and sometimes you need to just get up on a Saturday and just work your way through it. Both approaches are gifts. Small steps help us begin. Big bangs help us cross the threshold. Don't feel guilty if some moments in life need a broom and a trailer and a weekend and a decision and a phone call and a land in the sand. I am going to work on this until it's done, or mostly done. Not every change has to happen 1 inch at a time. Some transformations need the ignition turned on, and the wisdom is learning which kind of moment you are in right now. I appreciate you being out there. Again, this is Jill from the North Woods. You can find everything I do at jillfromthenorthwoods.com. This is the Start with Small Steps podcast. And if it resonates with you, you can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com, or you can put a comment right here. Thanks so much. Have a great day.